Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta, and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. The government's budget deficit blows wider, hitting 784.4 billion pesos in just 7 months. The Immigration Bureau warns foreign nationals gaining Filipino citizenship through fake documents may be a systemic problem. And in the United States, protesters marched toward Wall Street calling for economic justice. Let's take a look at how global financial markets performed overnight, with artificial intelligence still driving the biggest moves on Wall Street. U.S. stocks closed higher after NVIDIA's results missed lofty expectations. The chipmaker warned of weakness in China, sales there amid Sino-U.S. tensions, pulling its shares down 0.8%. But a 56% surge in quarterly revenue highlighted strong demand for AI infrastructure, reassuring investors and lifting other AI-related stocks that have powered Wall Street to record levels.
Well, I think honestly, when you zoom out and look at the macro, the market is still kind of digesting the rate story, Powell's comments. There's been, a lot of back and forth, obviously, with this administration and the Fed as it relates to, pushing to lower interest rates. I think Powell's, comments about, starting to see the job market weaken as a path to decrease rates in September. The market had largely already priced that in. And so I think, at first glance, lower rates should be good for risk on assets.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.2%, the S&P 500 higher by 0.3%, and the Nasdaq higher by a bit more, up by 0.5%. Over in Europe, markets ended mixed. The UK's FTSE higher by lower by 0.4%. Germany's DAX flat with a slight downward bias, and France's CAC 40 higher by 0.2%. The government's budget deficit balloons to 784.4 billion pesos in the first 7 months, raising questions about how the country can fund growth while keeping debt sustainable. Treasury data shows the shortfall is 22% higher than last year's 642.8 billion pesos, but officials say it remains within targets under the fiscal program. Analysts warn that the deficit is only a symptom. The real test is whether public spending translates into infrastructure, job creation, and productivity gains, or simply swells the country's debt burden. Big development money is flowing into the Philippines, with the Asian Development Bank lining up $2.64 billion in projects over the next 2 years. The Manila-based lender says 9 projects are slated for approval between 2025 and 2026. 5 projects worth $1.55 billion this year, and 4 more totaling $1.08 billion next year. For 2025, the biggest project awaiting board approval is the $500 million Marine Ecosystems for the Blue Economy program, aimed at developing resilient coastal and marine ecosystems to support a thriving blue economy. Meanwhile, the largest in the 2026 pipeline is the $500 million Energy Efficiency in Public Buildings program, which will help implement the government's plan to cut state buildings' monthly power use by at least 10%. Manila is pushing back against Washington's new trade barriers as the Philippines seeks U.S. tariff exemptions for key exports. Trade Undersecretary Alan Gepti said targeted products include agricultural goods, electronics, vehicle tires, and aircraft parts. The U.S. began imposing a 19% tariff on Philippine goods starting August 7. Gepti added that about 23% of the country's total exports to the U.S. are already exempted from the new duty. President Trump earlier warned of even higher tariffs on semiconductors. Gepti noted that for now, 99% of the country's semiconductor exports, its biggest export earner, remain exempt. Bilyonaryo miner Joseph C. steps aside as the chairman of Global Ferro-Nickel Holdings Incorporated, the country's second largest nickel producer and a major supplier to the global battery industry. The board approved C's voluntary leave to focus on personal legal matters, electing President Dante Bravo as the new chairman. It also created a vice chairman post filled by lead independent director Jaime Del Rosario. He is currently detained in Camp Bagong Diwa over questions on his Filipino citizenship. The shakeup comes as demand for nickel surges worldwide, with the Philippines positioned as a key player in the electric vehicle supply chain. Any leadership uncertainty at FNI could impact investor sentiment and the country's mining outlook. On Thursday, FNI shares slipped nearly 0.8% to 1 peso and 29 centavos each, a reminder that market confidence hangs on both global demand and stability at the top. A loophole in the system may be allowing foreign nationals to secure Philippine citizenship through late birth registration, a risk with far-reaching security implications. The Bureau of Immigration issued the warning after agents arrested mining executive Joseph C., who is being accused of using fake documents to obtain Philippine citizenship. BI spokesperson Dana Sandoval says that what makes the case alarming is that C presented complete and original documents. She stresses that once someone obtains a birth certificate considered the mother document, it opens the door to other legal papers. This, she warned, could be used not just for business, but also for espionage or for other criminal activities. In other news, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas slashes rates by 25 basis points to jumpstart growth. But the big question is, can the economy rebound without reigniting inflation? Eugene Kim has the details.
The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has once again lowered the country's benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points, bringing the reverse repurchase rate to 5%. This marks the sixth rate cut since the central bank began its monetary easing cycle last year, reflecting its continued shift toward a looser stance to support growth while keeping inflation in check.
I think this puts us at our sweet spot for both inflation and output. The policy rate itself is at our Goldilocks rate, neither too high nor too low. I would characterize this as still dovish, but slightly less so.
As a result of the adjustment, the overnight deposit rate now stands at 4.5%, while the lending rate is at 5.5%. The BSP also slightly revised its inflation forecasts, raising projections for 2025 and 2027, while lowering the outlook for 2026. The BSP warned that future inflationary pressures could come from potential increases in electricity rates, the impact of higher rice tariffs, and developments in U.S. trade policies.
The uncertainty and also the slowdown, possible slowdown in global growth has reduced demand pressures.
Even if those risks materialize, I think we're likely to be within the target.
With only 2 policy meetings remaining this year, one in October and another in December, the BSP is now approaching the end of its easing cycle.
I think we have space for one more cut. That's a likely evolution of the policy rate.
Deputy Governor Zino Abinoja sees a strong possibility that the economy will reach the low end of the government's growth target of 5.5% this year, supported by the accumulated effects of the rate cuts. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Philippines' banana industry, once a global powerhouse, is now struggling to hold its ground in key markets. Exports to Japan have slid 21% over the last 6 years, while shipments to South Korea have dropped 32%. At the same time, regional rivals like Vietnam and Cambodia are expanding rapidly. The stakes are high. Bananas remain one of the country's top agricultural exports, supporting millions of jobs and rural communities. Industry leaders warn that without action, the Philippines risks losing its competitive edge. One of them is Paul Cuyagkeng, chairman of the Agricultural Committee of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or PCCI. He's also the chairman of Sumifu Philippines, a leading agricultural firm. He joins us now to discuss the state of the banana exporting industry and what must be done to regain market share on the global stage. Good morning, sir, and thank you for being here with us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Okay, sir, you've been in this industry for 50 years. You've seen multiple cycles. Today, Japan volumes down 21% in the last 6 years, Korea down 32%, and we're losing market share to Vietnam and Cambodia. What's causing the erosion, sir?
Well, the economies of Japan and Korea are not so strong either. And the population is getting old, birth rate is getting small, so we expect some drop in total demand. But the major concern that we have is that aside from this, the Vietnam and Cambodia fruit is penetrating the market at a very rapid rate. In Korea, in the last 3.5 years, have gone basically from nothing to 20% of the market. And in Japan, in the last 2 years, have gone as much as 8%. So this is a concern to us.
How big of a concern is this? How serious is this, given these numbers, sir?
It is a concern because we are saddled by a tariff in Japan that makes us uncompetitive. In the case of Vietnam and Cambodia, they're basically zero, and we have to pay 13.5%. So with this rate, it's very, very difficult for us to be competitive. And now what Vietnam and Cambodia are doing, they were at the low end of the market in China, but seeing the opportunities in Japan and Korea, they're starting to penetrate into this market. They're improving their quality and their food safety requirement.
Sir, zero tariff is difficult to beat. That said, tariffs are a huge game changer. Philippine bananas face an average of 13.5% in Japan, while Vietnam is already down to 6%. And it's headed to zero by 2028. In Korea, we're still at 18%, falling to 12% next year. But Vietnam already enjoys zero. How do we weather this storm until we can compete on equal footing?
Well, right now, the Philippines still has a very good reputation in quality and taste. They are also the banana that people are familiar with. But the biggest factor that is really saving us is the food safety requirements that both countries have. We have perfected our system, at least the Philippines have, such that the markets have confidence in our food safety. Whereas Vietnam and Cambodia, they still have to go through that process, and it has to go farm by farm, so that takes time.
Okay. Give us an idea, sir, in terms of appearance and taste, what makes the Filipino banana different?
Well, it's in the consumer's eyes. In taste, I know, at least with our corporations, because we test the taste of our bananas, and we ensure that the taste stays consistent. As far as appearance is concerned, we just have to make sure that we avoid the bruising and all the marks that goes with the bananas. I think in this area, they will be able to catch up. In the taste, maybe it takes a little bit longer.
Sir, on the ground, how are growers and exporters like you feeling the shrinking market share? Are you feeling downsizing in the industry already?
Yes, funny that you should ask, because about 2 weeks ago, we heard reports that one major company has decided to downsize their operation by 500 hectares, another one by 200 hectares, and a third one by 180 hectares. And 2 others are not renewing their contracts with growers. So they are very concerned that they may not be able to move the product.
Sir, beyond waiting for tariff reductions, what else can the Philippines do?
Well, right now, if you don't reduce the tariff, it's very difficult for us to think about anything else, because you know that you're not going to be competitive.
Sir, are you satisfied with how the government is handling the situation so far? Give us a sense of their urgency on the policy level for this issue.
Oh, no, we are very appreciative and very happy. The PSAC, the Private Sector Advisory Council that is formed by the President and headed by Sabina Boitis, they've been helping the private companies to voice out their concern, and they talk directly with the President, and the President directly tried to help all of us. In agriculture, it's headed by Eileen Oncauco. And not so long ago, they were able to develop a trade with Korea, wherein we are now in the process of reducing our tariff rate from 30% to zero over a period of 5 years. When you say 18%, that's because we are already on the third year. By next year, it will be 12% and 6%, and by 2028, it will be 0. So we're going down by 6% a year in Korea.
Yeah.
So in Korea, we can see at least the light at the end of the tunnel. So for us to invest for Korea, that's fine, because we know that by 2028, we'll be in the same competitive
category,
position
yeah.
as our, that's correct.
Yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it's waiting until that time. That's also difficult. But in terms of strategy, what about diversifying to other markets, sir? China, nearby, it's an enormous market. They have needs of 1 billion boxes compared to Japan's 70 million and Korea's 30 million. Why isn't the Philippines aggressively looking to China, and how much are geopolitical issues straining that possibility?
Okay, let me explain it to some historical context. When China opened, Philippines was very aggressive because we were practically the only banana growing country in Asia. And so we captured basically the whole China market. But we failed to understand that China has a domestic growing farms also, and they produce about 85 to 90% of the domestic requirement, so that the export is basically only 10%. So what happens is that if the domestic production goes up, it does affect the imports. And when you have a farm already, and all of a sudden the Chinese demand drops in 1 year, it's very difficult for you to get rid of your farm.
Yeah.
And secondly, today you have Vietnam and Cambodia that have planted and served the Chinese market and at the low end of the market. So you also have to compete with them.
Yeah.
So these are the areas that create a lot of uncertainty.
Sir,
Now, as far as the geopolitics is concerned, we of course, it's at the back of our head that we are a little bit concerned about that. But we are very confident that the administration or the Philippine government will find a solution to this. Particularly when we start joining, we have the ASEAN group, when we start joining CPTT and all these other trade group, I think that we will be able to ship to China.
Yeah.
So China, we have to consider, because it's the biggest market in here, but we'll have to do it slowly.
Okay, sir, beyond China, are there other realistic markets we can tap? And when you're exporting fresh produce, proximity is really key. We have to go nearby. We can't go too far, because then we have competition from Latin America,
That's
India,
correct.
Africa, and that makes diversification harder. What else is nearby that we can possibly
Yeah,
tap, sir?
the other big market for us before was the Middle East, where we shipped about 70, 80 million boxes a year. That has become more and more difficult for us, because now you're facing competition from India, Pakistan, which are very, very near, and maybe in the future, Africa. There could be opportunities for us to capture maybe a bit of that market because of our reputation, because of the way we treat our bananas, and because India also have a domestic market, and so seasonality will play a role. But it's not going to be a stable market like Japan, Korea, and China. But there will be a market. Australia is a market, but it's always been close to us.
Sir, was the U.S. ever a market for Philippine bananas, or is it too close to Latin America and Mexico?
I didn't get that question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, was the U.S. ever a market for Philippine banana
Oh, that's too
exporters,
far.
sir? Too far, right? So
It
they're
is-
served
it is-
by
it is-
Mexico and Latin.
It is really too far,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, on another front, sir, climate change is reshaping agriculture everywhere in the world.
Yes.
How is it changing banana farming here in the Philippines?
The climate change has really surprised a lot of us. Number one, that the temperature on the average has gone up higher by 1 to 2 degrees. And what you have is a lot of days where you have high temperature and then a lot of rain. And this has caused havoc in the banana plantations. Maybe the plants are not used to it. So number one, the supply curve has changed. And that is very difficult for us because the supply is not meeting the demand. So we have to start changing the farms around. Secondly, because of all this El Nino and dry weather, we always have a water problem. And thirdly, the climate change has changed the complexity with the pest and disease. It has actually increased the number of pests and has introduced new pests and pathogens into the banana farms. So we have to find out how to cope with this.
Mm-hmm. Sir, you've been in this business, banana exporting, agriculture business, for over 50 years. You've seen it at its best, you've seen it at its worst. We've weathered 2 world wars. How far are we right now, or how close are we from just being in the worst position ever?
Well, I would consider it at least one of the top 5 worst time in the banana industry. I mean, there is, aside from the pathogens and the fusarium and the cigatoka, we do have changing markets and geopolitics. So it's I would consider it one of the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Sir, do you have any specific ask from the Department of Agriculture?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any specific ask or request or reform from the Department of Agriculture that you'd like pushed forward?
Yes, Anil, as I said, I'm very happy with what they're doing for the tariff. I mean, our main concern is the tariff. Because if we don't get rid of that tariff, we are not competitive. So no matter what we do, we're going to end up not competitive anyway. So the first thing is to have that competitive, have the tariff removed. The second is water management. The climate change has made it almost a must that we have better water management. And when I heard a former secretary of DPWH, Dave Singson, I think is his name, when he talked about a master plan for flood control, where he tries to impound the water during the rainy season and then release it during the dry season, that is ideal for agriculture. We do have the water, except that it's not coming at the right time. And it's a resource that I think that we would need in the future. If we can manage that water, I think we'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Sir,
the third part, I guess, is I would like to see some sort of a mandatory program for the banana growers to follow certain standards, because if not, it will be very difficult for us to control our disease.
Mm-hmm. Sir, looking ahead, if everything comes together, if the trade strategies succeed, what would a stronger banana industry look like?
Well, I'm optimistic, but I think that because of the position of the Philippines, because we have an edge over all the others, because of our experience, our know-how, I think that we would be able to double what we have today. I would like to see us capture, let's say, 50% of the Chinese market, 90% of the Japan market, 80% of the Korean market, and maybe have a little position in the Middle East, like 35 million boxes. Together, I think we should be able to produce 200 million boxes, which is almost double of what we are today.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to better times and really expanding our market share globally. Thank you for your time, Mr. Kuyageng.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most, your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's check on how Asian markets are moving this Friday morning. Right now, the Nikkei 225 is in the red, lower by 0.3%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index going the other way, higher by 0.7%. Shanghai's Composite up as well, up by 0.5%. And Singapore's Straits Times Index up by 0.2%. Here at home, local shares pulled back on profit-taking yesterday, with the central bank's latest rate cut already priced in. The main index slipped back below the 6,200 mark. By the closing bell, the PSE index had dropped 1.33% or 83 points to finish at 6190. Turnover reached 953 million shares, valued at 7 billion pesos. The Bangko Sentral trimmed policy rates by 25 basis points to 5%, bringing total cuts this cycle to 1.5 percentage points. The move was widely expected, with traders locking in profits after the previous session's strong rally. Policymakers call this level balanced, supporting growth while keeping inflation in check. They also signaled the cutting cycle may be over, though weak economic output could still open the door for another move later on this year. The latest rate decision comes as inflation eased to a 6-year low of 0.9%, while economic growth held steady at 5.5% last quarter. Over the near term, analysts expect equities to move sideways, with lower rates providing support, but investors now looking to fresh catalysts like inflation data, corporate earnings, and global market signals. Taking a look at the main gauge this morning, as of 10:30, the main gauge is in the red, flat with a downward bias at 61.87. The broader all shares index is down by as much as well, down by less than 0.1% to 37.01. As for the sub-indices, the gains in the financial and holding firms are limiting the market's current decline. Total volume is at 425 million shares, valued at a little over 1 billion pesos. Market breadth is negative. We've got 65 decliners, 58 advancers, and 48 stocks unchanged. At the currency markets, the peso opens at 56.93 to the dollar, stronger than its previous close of 57.12. The new Konektadong Pinoy law is shaking up the telecom landscape. While major players raise concerns, Dito Telecommunity sees opportunity, calling it a chance to expand competition, improve connectivity, and deliver more value to Filipino consumers. Eugene Kim has the details.
While major telcos such as Globe and PLDT Smart have raised serious concerns over the newly enacted Konektadong Pinoy law, Dito Telecommunity is taking a very different position. Dito sees the measure as a welcome development.
The more we think about it, Konektadong Pinoy can be actually a very positive thing, not just for Dito, but actually for our for subscribers and for the public in general.
Dito's Chief Revenue Officer, Attorney Adel Tamano, stressed that the reform could even improve the company's bottom line, particularly as it pushes for greater market penetration. Industry leaders and members of the PCTO have earlier voiced reservations, especially on the issue of infrastructure sharing. However, Dito pointed out that sharing network infrastructure has long been part of its strategy, even before the passage of the law, partnering with local internet service providers.
The end goal is to allow more entrants to come in to provide that type of service, and because there are more entrants, you're going to have competition and price will go down.
Tamano reiterated that competition is fundamental to Dito's identity as a new entrant.
You know, as a company that was built to bring in competition into the market, I think it would be very hypocritical of us to say we don't want competition. Competition is good. I think for Dito, maybe there might be some pain, but if we're smart and if we partner actually with the TIPs that are coming, it could be a win-win for us. And not just for us business-wise, but also for the Filipino public who needs really affordable internet services.
Dito acknowledged that finalizing the implementing rules and regulations will be complicated. However, the company assured that it will actively participate in the process to help ensure strong cybersecurity safeguards and clear service level agreements are built into the law's implementation, citing that upon Dito's entry into the industry, it had rolled out a minimum speed of 55 Mbps with 86% population coverage. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Expanded regional engagements could help the country's economic zones attract up to 300 billion pesos worth of investments this year. PEZA Director General Tereso Panga says the agency is seeing a healthy pipeline of projects and expects strong growth momentum in the coming month. From January to August, PEZA approved 179 projects worth 105.8 billion pesos, up 72% from a year ago. More cars, more cash. SMC Tollways posts a 3% profit jump to 4.9 billion pesos in the first half of the year. Revenues rose 5% to 11 billion pesos as traffic picked up across all vehicle classes in the second quarter. The Skyway carried an average of 286,000 vehicles per day, up 3%, while Skyway Stage 3 surged 9% to more than 176,000 vehicles. Expenses inched up just 2%, mostly from new project costs like amortization and maintenance. Next up, SMC is pumping 50 billion pesos into South Luzon Expressway Toll Road for a game changer that will slash travel time from Batangas to Quezon to just 45 minutes by 2026 and unlock new growth across southern Luzon. The government is releasing 700 million pesos in financial aid to fund local government projects aimed at boosting community services and resilience. The Departments of Budget and Management and the Interior and Local Government sealed the move through a joint memorandum circular under the 2025 Support and Assistance Fund Participatory Budgeting Program. More than 40 LGUs will benefit. 35 will roll out water and sanitation projects, while 9 disaster-prone areas will build climate-smart evacuation centers. DBM Undersecretary Wilford Willong and DILG Undersecretary Marlo Irigan led the formal signing of the agreement. We're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. Davao City Representative Paulo Duterte fires back at critics, saying his Davao City projects, including flood control, are finished and accounted for. Joan Manalo has the details.
Davao City 1st District Representative Paulo Duterte says all his projects are properly implemented and completed. This after Manila 6th District Representative Benny Abante urged acting Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte to look into the funding of Davao City's infrastructure projects.
Tanungin niya yung kanyang kapatid na congressman, magkano ba ang pondong nakuha ni Congressman Pulong nung congressman siya nung panahon ng kanyang father? Magkano po yung nakuha? I-reveal niya kung magkano, kung saan ginamit ang pondong yan, kung paano ginamit yan, kung ilang bilyon ang napunta sa flood control project, at kung bakit malaki pa ang baha at Davao.
In a statement, Paulo said he is directing the DPWH district and regional offices in Davao to release the official data and amounts spent. He further stressed that there are no ghost or non-existing projects in his district, adding that floods in Davao City subside quickly compared to other areas. Baste earlier claimed that the Marquez administration's probe into anomalous flood control projects is merely a PR stunt. Hence, Abante challenged him to prove his statement.
Kung talagang PR stunt to, patunayan niya kung talagang PR stunt to or may katotohanan na sinasabi.
Paulo then responded, calling on Abante not to drag his brother's name into the issue and reiterating that their projects have been transparent and records are accessible. Meanwhile, House Public Accounts Committee Chairperson Terry Ridon also challenged Baste to return to the country, as the latter is currently in The Hague with his siblings to visit the detained former President Rodrigo Duterte. Ridon stressed that mayors must be present during times of crisis.
Very important din po definitely na makita rin ho natin yung pong impact no, ng mga flood control systems within Davao City and within Davao region. Kasi I'm quite certain malaki din po talaga yung pondo na iginugol within this administration and more particularly in the previous administration.
This comes after reports showing that parts of Davao City were submerged in floods due to heavy rains from recent weather disturbances. Joan Manalo, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The tables are turning on Malacanang. Senator Risa Ontiveros is challenging President Marcos himself to undergo a lifestyle check amid corruption allegations in flood control projects. Hannah T. reports.
Senator Risa Ontiveros presumes that President Bongbong Marcos included himself in the lifestyle checks he ordered. The call comes amid surging allegations of anomalies in flood control projects. Some DPWH officials are accused of lavish lifestyles, while communities still face floods and so-called ghost or substandard projects.
Akala ko, now that you mention it, akala ko ibig niyang sabihin kaming lahat sa anumang branches of government.
In the Code of Conduct of Public Officials, they should lead modest lives appropriate to their positions and income and must not indulge in extravagant display of wealth. An official's SAL-N, or Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, is a public document. It shows their complete financial information, and for Ontiveros, that of PBBMs should be subject to the standard. She welcomed the move as a step toward transparency, but Ontiveros also said lawmakers should not be exempt. She challenged Congress leaders to voluntarily submit themselves to the same check. Ontiveros herself is willing to do it.
Wala namang nagpipigil sa amin na gawin iyon. At yun na nga kung iutos din or i-anunsyo din ng dalawang pinuno ng dalawang kapulungan, wala namang problema siguro.
The minority bloc, she added, may be willing to join.
Walang problema sumali kaming 5 sa minority sa Senate. Meron din kaming mga counterparts na minority sa House na dahil turing namin sa isa't isa ay counterparts, magkakadiwa kami dyan sa mga prinsipyo ng transparency and accountability.
Ontiveros also backed Minority Leader Tito Soto's proposal to include spouses of government officials in the checks. But the senator warned lifestyle checks are not enough. They must be backed by prosecutions, especially against big fish involved in flood control corruption. Hannah T. Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board hits back, denying allegations that contractor licenses can be bought. Senator Ping Lacson earlier claimed some contractors paid around 2 million pesos to fast-track their accreditation. PCAB insists it has never authorized any individual or group to guarantee licenses in exchange for money. Still, it admits schemes and fake online accounts have emerged, pretending to offer shortcuts for a fee. The board says it is investigating and working with authorities to crack down on these rackets, reminding contractors to transact only through official channels. Lacson, however, isn't letting up, saying PCAB must explain how some contractors still managed to get accreditation even after paying up, and demanding the board take a more active role to clean up the system. Leyte 4th District Representative Richard Gomez is under fire after accusing journalists of media spin in covering the collapsed flood control project in Matao, Leyte. In a Facebook post, Gomez claimed that similarities in reporters' questions and interview requests suggested an orchestrated effort, even hinting that members of the media were being paid just to get his side. Among those he posted was a request from BNC reporter Joash Malimban. The National Union of Journalists of the Philippines hit back, stressing that asking for his comment is standard due process and, in fact, works in his favor. He said he could have simply declined or said no comment instead of impugning malice. The NUJP further criticized Gomez for posting screenshots with reporters' names and phone numbers, warning this could violate data privacy laws and expose journalists to harassment or fraud. BNC has again reached out to Gomez for comment on the NUJP statement, but he has yet to respond. Senator J.V. Ejercito wants the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee to subpoena DPWH officials in Bulacan's 1st District as questions grow over possible anomalies in public works projects.
Dapat imbestigahan itong mga particular districts. Mukhang masyado na sila naging sakit. I receive information na papasok sila 10 a.m., 2 p.m., alisa na, at magkakasino na, sabay-sabay. Di ba? So, tsaka yung lifestyle nila iba na. Dapat yan ang imbestigahan.
A report from the Philippine News Agency shows that the Bambang Bridge in Bocaue had a budget of 68.4 million pesos. It was built by top-notch construction, one of the 15 firms named by President Marcos in his list of biggest DPWH contractors. The district engineer also revealed that Senator Joel Villanueva repeatedly inquired about the budget.
Pag po kinakausap ako ni Sen, ano ba yun, magkano pa kulang natin dyan? Kasi talaga po kinukulit siya. Anyway, eto na po tayo ngayon. Isang matatag na proyekto na inilaan ang ating buting senador at ang kanyang pamilya.
This comes after Senator Panfilo Lacson earlier warned that some senators may be profiting from infrastructure deals. He has urged Malacanang to expand the scope of the Sumbong sa Pangulo website to cover more cases of alleged corruption.
If it's not asking too much, I would like to propose that the Sumbong sa Pangulo website be expanded to cover other infrastructure projects, hindi lang flood control. It will really help a lot because it helped us a lot.
An ethics complaint is now looming over Deputy Minority Leader Risa Ontiveros, accusing her of witness tampering in high-profile cases. The complaint was filed by PDP Laban Deputy Spokesperson Ferdinand Topacio, former Congressman Jing Paras, and lawyer Manny Luna. They claim Ontiveros was involved in multiple instances of witness tampering. The latest allegedly paying Senate witness Michael Maurilio to testify against Kingdom of Jesus Christ leader Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, former President Rodrigo Duterte, and Vice President Sara Duterte.
The issue here is not whether we believe or not. That is why we want the Senate to investigate. The issue here is due process
Hindi po pwede yung upper chamber ay may mga tao na nagbabayad, nagtatamper, nag-iimpluwensya at nangingid na po ng mga testigo.
Senator Ontiveros responded that she will face the complaint head-on, saying it will not deter her from work in the Senate. When asked whether powerful backers are behind the lawyers who filed the case, she said nothing has changed, insinuating that there are always forces at play.
Ano ba yung track record nila? Laging may nasa likod din.
We're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. Hundreds of demonstrators take to the streets of New York, marching toward Wall Street to make their voices heard. Protesters say they are pushing back against corporate America's retreat from diversity, equity, and inclusion, claiming companies are bending under pressure from the Trump administration. The protest highlights a wider debate for global business, how far companies should go in balancing political pressure with social policies that influence investors, employees, and customers. For Asia and the rest of the world, it matters because many multinationals based in the United States set the standard for corporate practices worldwide, impacting supply chains, talent policies, and investment decisions across global markets.
62 years ago today, Martin's father marched in Washington. 62 years later, the dream is not dead. It's the dreamers in many cases have reversed and tried to turn it into a nightmare. And those on Wall Street are the ones benefited from it. They're the ones getting the tax cuts at the expense of Medicaid, at the expense of SNAP. So we come to Wall Street rather than Washington this year to let them know you can try to turn back the clock, but you can't turn back time. We gonna keep the dream alive on Wall Street.
Protests turned violent in Indonesia as demonstrators clashed with police while trying to storm the parliament building. The crowd is rallying against what they call excessive pay and perks for lawmakers. With local media reporting, parliamentarians earn over $6,000 a month, plus housing allowances. Protesters also slammed what they describe as corrupt elites at the heart of government. The unrest matters to global business. Indonesia is Southeast Asia's largest economy, a key supplier of nickel and palm oil, and a crucial market for investors. Political instability could shake business confidence and ripple through regional supply chains. Elsewhere in the world, drama erupts in Mexico's Senate as two lawmakers trade blows after a heated debate. Opposition leader Alejandro Moreno approached Senate President Gerardo Noronha during the national anthem at the close of the hearing. Noronha brushed him off, sparking a fistfight that stunned the floor. The clash followed a sharp debate over the presence of foreign troops in Mexico. Noronha later announced that he will call an emergency session Friday to push for Moreno's expulsion. For global business, the turmoil raises fresh questions about stability in Latin America's second largest economy, a crucial hub for manufacturing, supply chains, U.S. trade, and foreign investment. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo news channel, and have a good weekend.